welcome everyone to our Inspire series webinar. The Power is Creativity in Education is our topic today with our guest speaker, Julie. We're so excited to have her. She's been an inspiration for us for many years as an educator and doing some amazing work with her students. So for the next 30 minutes or so, get ready to have an exciting journey with us.
I'm just looking at all these people coming in from all over the place. Yay!
Yeah, it's so exciting. Yeah, as Julie mentioned, if you're just now joining us, excited to have you all. If you can go ahead and please put your name. It looks like we have a lot of students as well. So yes, please share where you're going to school, what level you are. If you are an educator or in any other different professional sector, please let us know which organization you're with and say hello to everyone and get to know each other.
Looks like I'm seeing a lot of future educators. The University of Iowa is representing right now.
All right, way to go. Well, great to have you all. Continue to, feel free to use the chat and say hello or ask questions or, it looks like, obviously you all are interested in education. So maybe there are things that you can share with one another that will be helpful. Well, welcome everyone. You're in good company today. So we are Bridge Innovate. We are a consulting agency in Chattanooga, Tennessee area. We are a global network of business strategists, consultants, and leaders who work alongside your teams to create defining moments for your organization. And Inspire series is something we've been doing, for many months now, just trying to bring inspirational speakers like Julie to bring insights and creativity back into your lives. Hopefully you're not too Zoom fatigued. So if you're interested in learning more about Bridge Innovate, feel free to look us up on the website. And obviously you're excited to hear from Julie. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to her to quickly introduce herself. But I just want to say we're so excited to have her. You're in for a huge treat today. So again, if you have any questions, there will be hopefully some time left towards the end to go over some of your questions. So feel free to use the chat feature as Julie shares her insights, and hopefully we can answer some of them at the end. Thank you again. And Julie, please, I'm going to hand it off to you and let us know, your highlights. I know there's so many things, so we're excited to hear from you.
All right. My name is Julie Daniel Davis, and I am currently an adjunct professor at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where I'm teaching ed tech courses. Formerly, I was at the same school system, a K-12 system, where I ended as the Director of Instructional Technology and Innovation. Technology is a huge part of who I am, but using technology creatively and intentionally is a very important part of who I am as well. As I've transitioned out of the K-12 environment, I'm also an educational consultant going into various schools and helping them, specifically right now with the changes that are going on with the COVID environment. I'm also very much involved with voice technology, which when I say voice technology, think of things like Alexa or Siri or Google Assistant, but it's not limited to just that. And I'm a creator and host of the Voice in Education podcast, where once a week I come out and I just talk about voice technology, because I believe it's the next paradigm that's really going to impact education for the future, our world for the future, but specifically education. I'm also a certified education technology leader, got that certification last year. So you can see from all this that I'm really invested in technology. So much of what we're talking about today is going to have to do with creativity and technology. So my first question for you, and that I would like you to answer, is, at what age do you feel you were the most creative? So feel free to type down in the chat box how you would answer that. 6 years old, love it. Now, way to go, Isabella. 43, yes. Now at 23, okay? I love how varied this is. Anybody else want to share? now and 13. I like that you feel like there's two different times. You know, I was thinking about this question myself as I was typing it up, and I thought, I remember as a child coming home from a long trip with my cousin in the back seat, and we were designing out loud with each other an amusement park. And he was several years older than me, probably 6 years older than me. I was still in elementary school. And the next morning, I got up and went outside and started creating a model scale version with the things that I had. And when he woke up, he could care less, which was interesting to me because he was so into it the day before. I feel like creativity came easy for me when I was young. I think I had to, as an adult, push myself to be creative, but it is something that I do enjoy doing. All right, so let's look at this question. What is the most creative thing you did as a student for a teacher? Can you think of something that really tapped into your creativity? Hosted a dean's retirement party, which wasn't actually part of your educational process, but it was part, you were asked to do that. Musical instrument contests, science and art projects, travel brochure for future students to get to know her, a picture book, nice, life of a president's wife from long ago, famous places, creative famous places. Guys, these are really cool answers. Anybody else want to share? What I find interesting is, what did the teachers ask of you? In the 3rd grade, we all had to write for a mock Pulitzer Award nonfiction, fiction, or a poem. Nice. I like these creative teachers you had. I think the thing that I feel most creative about, when I was in elementary school, we didn't have art classes, but we had an art teacher, I guess it was a roving art teacher, came into our school, and there was going to be a mural in the hallway of the school. And we all got to design what we thought the mural should look like. And I was in 5th grade, and my mural idea was one of the ones chosen and integrated to become part of the hallway. And so that was kind of a standalone thing. But when I thought back of where I really felt like I was the most creative, that was one of the things that stood out with me. It had nothing to do with a lesson plan at all, per se, but that was my most creative moment that I remember. So what I want us to do today is first go over our agenda. We have 3 things we're going to look at. Number 1, why is creativity important in education? Number 2, how can educators encourage creativity? And then number 3, I would be remiss if we didn't speak into why pandemic times open the door for more creativity, and maybe not even open the door, but require an expectation for more creativity. So the name of this is The Power of Creativity in Education. And the next slide that I'm going to share with you is one that just really makes you stop and think. If 85% of the jobs that today's students will do in 2030 don't exist yet, then what are we preparing them for? 85%. And I think back on that, and you know, when I was in elementary school, there was no such thing as the Director of Instructional Technology and Innovation. And that was years ago. But yet, we're still kind of preparing students in the same way we've always prepared them. Education doesn't look that much different as a whole. And so the question becomes, how does that quote make you feel? As a parent, if you're a parent, as an educator, as an employee, employer, and for you guys that are out there who are pre-service teachers, how does that make you feel as a pre-service teacher? I'd love to hear your answer to this. Let's go back to that quote one more time just so people can see it. 85% of the jobs that today's students, and it doesn't say elementary students, it just says today's students will do in 2030 don't exist yet. How does that make you feel? Hopeful and excited. I like that. A bit nervous. Fair, very fair. Especially if you have children and you're wondering, are we on the right path? It's daunting but exciting to think about what our future students will be doing in their careers. Curious, optimistic, curious, a little scared, although excited. Love it. All right, so let's go forward. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said this: we can't always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. So what does that mean? What are the skills that we can give our students that can really help them forward no matter what that job looks like in year 2030? So as an instructional technologist, one of the things that I always felt like it was important to do was look at ed tech in the space of the 4 C's of technology integration. And so those 4 C's include creation, connection, consumption, and curation. And pretty much anything you can do with technology is going to fall into one of those categories as a rule. So I also found, by being in my job, that what we saw was creativity and creating with technology led to expressionism of students. And if you're familiar with the constructionism viewpoint, that is that knowledge is created by children in an active process with surrounding worlds. So once you give students information and then you allow them to create something based on their learning, they're more likely to be involved and connected. If you're familiar with Sir Ken Robinson, he died, I think last week or week before last, from very quick cancer. Someone I greatly admire. He was an educational consultant, author, obviously Sir Ken. He was from Britain. He was British. And he has a YouTube video, and he said it often in many of the things that he attended, called "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" And we're going to share that link with you at the end. But the important thing to remember is that as educators, we have to be really careful how we're creating opportunities for our students. One of the things that Sir Ken Robinson said was that creativity is as important as literacy. Would you agree or disagree with that? I think I agree with it, honestly. I know I didn't wait very long there. But I think creativity is what's going to spur someone forward in making decisions that will be helpful. So this quote by Forbes magazine ranks creativity as one of the most desirable skills of today's workforce, along with critical thinking, complex problem solving, judgment and decision making, and active listening. If you notice, what is not listed there is content knowledge. And all you teachers out there are pre-service teachers who are studying for that praxis. I remember what that's like, and you have to know your content knowledge. But that content knowledge isn't as important in the workforce as it is these things that are listed here. So that's really interesting, I think. We are responsible for content knowledge, but I believe as educators, we are also responsible for making sure our students are well-rounded and creative. So as we move forward, many of you have probably heard the phrase future ready. And if you're an educator right now, you've probably heard it so much that it just feels like another word that's going to come in and go out. But future ready means preparing those students for that world that they don't know about or that we don't know about. So there's learning skills, and you'll see those listed there. Literacy skills, you'll see those listed there. And there's life skills. And I think all of those kind of fall under an umbrella of creativity. So, you know, if you're thinking about what is it that I want my students to know how to do in order to be functioning employees or employers one day. These are the type of skills that we really need to be focusing on. And there's no necessarily a standard that goes along with that. So you have to kind of look for ways to embed these opportunities where they may not already exist in just your lesson plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about ways that that can happen. So as I said before, creativity means that students learn best when they construct their own knowledge, and it allows transferring of information to new ideas. And so if you're familiar with constructionism, which is Seymour Papert, I'll always say that wrong, Papert, or constructionist, which is Piaget, sorry, I struggled there. They both are on the concept that knowledge is grounded in context. And, no, I'm sorry, that's constructionism. But constructionist believes that, I'm really struggling, sorry about this, knowledge is created by a child being active in the process of their world. And so we want them to express that. If students, as a rule, we still see classrooms set up very much the way they've been set up for generations, with rows and columns and a teacher in the front of the room. But what this means is that teachers really have to learn how to let go and be more a guide on the side or a facilitator instead of a sage on the stage, just giving out all the information. And while we're in a world now where technology is just out there for anyone to use and to access, it kind of knocks down the four walls of your classroom because you don't have to know all the information. One of the critical things that a student needs to know is how to find information. That was one of those learning skills that we saw a little bit ago. So creativity happens in these type of environments. So as we think about that, how do you create those type of environments in your classroom? So I think you have to look for ways to include those soft skills. And the slide that had the 3 different columns, and it had the can't think of the name of the word, what is that called to the right?
Rocket.
Rocket, thank you. And this one is talking about literacy skills, and those literacy skills are very important. And as we go back, how do we get to those literacy skills? So we're going to create that culture of creativity. Ways to do that: create student contracts. So if students are working in groups, have them create group contracts and how they're going to settle disputes. So maybe you give them a bag of goodies. Maybe it's got dice in it. Maybe it's got a quarter in it. Maybe it's got cards in it. And when they get to a place where they can't agree on how to move forward, they pull out that bag and they roll the dice, and whoever gets the highest number, that's the direction we're going to go with their idea. So creating student contracts and how you're going to resolve difficulties allows creativity. I think one of the reasons teachers don't want to be creative or allow creativity in the classroom is because it often feels out of hand. So setting up these type of safeguards and scaffolding that is very helpful. Setting up class teams so that you automatically can go, a student knows if I say, okay, get in your teams, they know exactly what that means and who they're going to go work with, so that it's not a constant, okay, you go with there, taking up lots of time. I think another way to help with creativity is to allow students to set goals. So goal setting is really important no matter what age. To ask a kindergartner, what is it you want to learn today? Based on what we're learning, what do you think you can accomplish today? Getting them ready to start thinking about and owning their own learning can lead to creativity. Blended learning, where you're using technology part of the time. If you're looking at any type of education happening right now, it has been trial by fire where teachers are having to do blended learning or even online learning. That allows for creativity as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then lastly, project-based or problem-based learning, where you ask a question, and you're trying to solve an issue. That allows students to really think beyond just the day-to-day worksheet that they may be having as a regular place in their class time. So I think what's really important though is that you have to create a safe classroom culture for sharing those thoughts and feelings. One of the things that I think you have to do is that there's no wrong answer. You've got to be transparent with your students and say, hey, I don't get it right the first time either. Sometimes I make mistakes too, but there's safety here for us to be safe and feel secure in trying to be creative, and no idea is a bad idea. I think it's also important, as we move to the next slide, to remember that their social and emotional intelligence can have an impact on their creativity. For some students, you may see them shine when you give them something where they have to really think critically and be creative. For other students, it may terrify them to death because they're really good at playing school like it's always been. So you've got to think about how is this going to impact each of the types of children that we teach. And you've got to allow those children to fail forward. You can't allow this to be like, oh, no, that's not the right answer. Creativity means being open to whatever answer they give you and then working forward. And how do they work forward? With check-ins. So perhaps you have a maker space, which is really popular right now, or you participate in Genius Hour. Those are the types of ways that you can keep checking in with students and moving them forward in their learning, but yet to them it doesn't necessarily feel like learning because it's something that they really are excited about and want to know more about anyway. Other ways you could do that is just allowing them to use technology for creativity. So video and photography. If you've ever heard of pechakucha, it's a Japanese word and it's 20 by 20. So you have 20 slides and you stay on each slide for 20 seconds and you have to explain something in that amount of time. So it's teaching clarity and it's teaching students how to be precise in the way they share their learning, and it's also teaching them how to curate their learning. A great simple way for students to be creative. If you're thinking about STEM, Scratch is a great free platform through MIT that allows students to create by coding and learn coding and create games. I mentioned maker spaces where they can do create Rube Goldberg machines where they can learn angles and wheels and levers and that type of thing. They can blog for creativity, creative thinking for something like there's a website called Storybird, which is a great way to look at images to create stories. Students can create stories with that. You can ease them into creativity. So helping them see how I can be creative by creating very small opportunities and then allowing those to grow. Another one might be to allow them to create cartoons about the learning of something that they just learned in class, and they can do that online as well. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the best ways I believe that I became a creative educator, and I'm not being paid to say this, is the design thinking framework. And Bright Spark and Bridge Innovate do a invention challenge and a design competition where my students were a part of. And that introduced me to the design thinking framework, where you can see there at the bottom of that slide. But it also taught me how to let go, because when you explain those different steps to a student and the challenges before them, they're going to run with it. And that was a great program for me specifically and for the teachers that I worked with. And I know that they have an invention challenge coming up real soon, which is an international thing. So if you're interested or you have no students who might be interested, this is a great opportunity for them as well. And you will grow as an educator, specifically in the design competition. I promise you, you will grow from that. So then I think what I need to mention is the need for creativity in pandemic times. We're looking at a time where we're teaching students in a less controlled environment, meaning that oftentimes we're teaching them while they're at home. So we don't know what they have access to. We don't know what's going on in their world while we're trying to teach them. So we've got to figure out ways that we can be creative with this. We also don't know how long their attention span is going to last when they're dealing with Zoom fatigue and things like that. So they have less access to the tools and the supplies that you normally use in class. So what you have to be is a creative educator in terms of using supplies that they probably would have at home. So perhaps that means I want you to create a model of what we're talking about using aluminum foil. Almost everyone has aluminum foil in their classroom. Or I want you to go outside and I want you to pick 6 leaves from 6 different trees, because we're about to start a unit in science on trees, and we're going to then analyze those leaves. So meeting students where they are looks very different now. We've got to look for different ways to assess that learning. If you're sitting there thinking you're going to control the environment of them taking a test online, I'm here to say you probably aren't going to control it, because while I'm sitting here talking to you, I have also had my phone in my lap the whole time going through the slides to make sure what was next. Students can do that as well. So, you know, that type of thing for cheating, you're not going to get a really good picture of what that looks like. So how do you assess differently? I think that may be through models. It may be through conversations. It may be through something like asking questions that are open-ended, or you're learning about the Civil War and they've learned all the stuff, all that content knowledge, but then the question might be, how do you think a Union soldier felt at the Battle of Chickamauga? What were the main emotions he would have been feeling? So things like that makes it open-ended, where only a student can answer for themselves and they can't look up what someone else might think, because you're asking specific things and you're tapping into that creativity. What would a Union soldier be like? What would he feel like? Well, his feet would probably be cold, right? Things like that are going to be really important to help students be creative during this time. And then lastly, I would say you need to look for opportunity for personalized learning. This is a time where there's not a stigma when one student gets something a little harder or a little easier. So you can assign something based on your students' needs because they're at home learning. And so no one knows what each other's learning looks like. Personalized learning is really going to add to creativity because you're meeting the student exactly where they are. And all this may seem really, really overwhelming. Yes, Julie, that sounds great, but how do we do that? Well, in my opinion, I would say you need the power of a good rubric. So if I assign something to students where I want them to share their learning, and I say, and I want everybody to make a poster with that, what I'm getting is cookie cutter results. If you want creativity, what if I assign the same thing, but I say to the students, if you want to do a podcast to share your learning, that's fine. If you want to write a song, that's fine. If you want to do a poster, that's fine. Maybe your greatest skill is writing a paper. That's fine. Maybe you want to do a cartoon. that's fine. If I have a really good rubric, it doesn't matter what means they're sharing their information, because you're looking at it through the lens of the content and the creativity. So I pulled this rubric from PBL Works, which is a great website, and I'm going to share that with you later as well, the link to PBL Works. But it is a great website for learning more about project-based learning. You could take portions of this and embed it into a rubric for something that you are doing in the classroom with your students, and you don't have to start from scratch. I don't believe in recreating the wheel. So start with something that's already created, like this great rubric, and just add it to your rubric so that it can be something that you can use forward. And look, they have a lot of different rubrics that also might be of value to you as well. So I would suggest going there and looking at what they're doing. They do a lot of blended learning stuff as well. So I will leave you with this last thought. Without change, there is no innovation, creativity, or incentive for improvement. Those who initiate change will have a better opportunity to manage the change that is inevitable. William Pollard. I think one of the things that's hard about change is that we feel like right now we're having to do it on the fly. And so that does make it hard, but change is important if we're going to tap into creativity in these type of pandemic times. So the change has to start with the educator though. And that's the hard part, where how do I as an educator change the way of what I'm doing to better meet the needs of our students? One of the things I would also leave you with is, don't feel like you've got to start from scratch thinking about creativity. There are a lot of really great things out there where you could start with it. If you're teaching online, your students have access to technology, go to commonsense.org and look up creation tools. And you're going to see a list of tools that might be helpful for your students. No reason for you to try to curate those all by yourself. So there are lots of opportunities out there. As we end this session, I do want to ask you, do you have any questions for me? Anything we can discuss?
Well, thank you, Julie. I know we are already at time, but if there's any questions, one of the things I'll just share with you, we're going to make sure that there's going to be a follow-up with this recording in case you'd like to share, or if just as a refresher later down the road. And Julie actually mentioned several resources, and she's been so gracious to share her links with us. So we're going to make sure to include those along with her Twitter handle. If you do not follow her on Twitter, please do. She shares so many great insights on that platform. So we'll make sure to include that. So please reach out to her. She does some amazing work. So thank you so much, Julie, for the session today. And I'm so grateful that you mentioned our Invention Challenge. If any of you are interested, just, in terms of learning about what that is, we do have a session coming up on September 1st. It's just another 30 quick minute with us to learn a little bit about the Invention Challenge. As Julie mentioned, we're so excited to have really an international challenge this year with students from India and Egypt, all around the globe joining. So we're so excited. So more the merrier. If you know of any students who's interested, please let them know the opportunities there, and any educators you think might be interested, please let them know that they can find our event on www.bridgeinnovate.com/events. And of course, we have many more inspiring webinars coming up featuring guest speakers like Julie, who truly inspire us every day. So that is it. Again, thank you so much for joining today and spending your Friday early evening with us. You will be receiving this recording as part of our registrant. So thank you again for joining. I hope you all have a great weekend. And thank you so much, Julie, for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you.
All right, bye everyone.